It's the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. As we head into the first week of summer here and the last week of June, obviously some interesting things on the table, including a confrontation between the Yankees and the Mets starting tomorrow night in what should be a sold-out Citi Field. Mets come into this really playing about as well as they can, I think, as a team, but now having to deal with this Diaz situation. Now, I'm sure everyone is aware. I'm sure you were aware last night of what happened. Diaz gets pinched. He's facing 10-game suspension for using a sticky substance. He says, of course, he didn't. He'll appeal, but he won't win. So the Yankees come into this series not playing well, haven't played well in their last dozen games, losing series. They don't have Stanton. They don't have Rizzo. The Mayor's doing nothing. Bullpen's a little shaky. They do have Cole back, and that's a statement. They do have, obviously, the 1-2 punch that's better than any 1-2 punch in baseball with Judge and Soto. But they do come into this, they do limp into this Subway Series. And a couple of weeks ago, you would have thought the Yankees would come in on their white horses flying high, while the Mets were just an awful bunch, a ragtag bunch that couldn't get out of their own way. Instead, the Mets come in playing very good baseball, winning series after series, having knocked off 8 of their last 10, while the Yankees have lost 7 of their last 10. So they come in much closer than we would have thought in terms of perspective. And the Mets are hoping to make something out of this season, make it a wild card season. It is a wild race in the NL wild card. We have talked about that on numerous occasions. The race could be incredible in September because you could have as many as 8 or 9 teams fighting for 2 spots. And everybody's in the same boat, other than the Braves in the National League, as far as the wild card goes. And the Mets find themselves a game behind. And they are now flirting with the 500 mark, and now they get a chance to measure themselves against the mighty Yankees, against Judge and Soto and Cole, of course. And like we said, the Yankees have been vulnerable. They haven't played well. They get beat 3-1 by the Braves yesterday. They've got some injuries. They've got some question marks in the lineup right now. They are not, LeMayo's hitting 185. How much time do they give LeMayo? They're going to play Rice at first base because so far he's hit. They can put Cabrera at third and put LeMayo on the bench, which is something people didn't expect to happen this year. You play Grisham. I've told you all year, and it looked like a bad call. I told you that Grisham would be a valuable player on this team. I also told you that he'd hit a good number of home runs. He's only had a handful of at-bats. His batting average was under 100 for a while, but the guy's had 50-some-odd at-bats. He's got 4 home runs, 1 huge 3-run jack that was a game winner. He plays a good center field. He can steal a base, and he's got power. And if you leave him in the lineup, he's going to get a chance to play now with Stanton out. And you're going to see he's going to be a very valuable player on this team. He's not going to hit for high averages, doesn't have to. But he hits home runs, he can steal a base, and he's got a gold glove. Torres has had a lousy year. But you have to just leave Torres alone. You've seen enough in his career to just leave him alone. And obviously, as long as they have Volpe doing what he does, and have Verdugo doing what he does. Now, Verdugo, his numbers don't look great, but they're better than you think. He's got 15 doubles. He's got 9 homers. He's got 40 RBIs. He's played a good outfield. He's had big hits. So there's too many 0 for 4s, but the bottom line is he's okay. And he's fit in very well. Now they're going to miss Stanton because Stanton was having a good year. You knew he'd get hurt because he always gets hurt. I mean, Stanton always pulls something or rips something. I mean, that's just the way his whole life has gone. It's going to always be that way. But after a terrific start to the season, the Yankees have hit a rough patch here. They have some injuries. They have some guys not hitting. They have some guys not performing. They have some question marks. They have some question marks in the bullpen. Okay? Now they do have Cole back, which is obviously a big deal. So his ability to just be that kind of guy, to set that kind of leadership role, set that kind of pace for the whole rotation. Hill's been terrific. He already got beat up. He's got to overcome that. So this series will start with Cole going up against Peterson. Now, Cole's not in regular season form yet. He's going to obviously still be on a pitch count. But he can go 6 good innings. And give him 6 good innings. And then they're going to see Hill in game 2. So it's going to be Cole against Peterson. It's going to be Hill against Manaea. So the Mets will see the best the Yankees have. And the Mets will have to do it, obviously, with some issues in the bullpen. We'll wait and see what happens with this Diaz thing as far as appeals and what day it starts and everything else. He's not going to beat the rap. We know that. Umpire said, hey, I know what dirt is. I know what rosin is. I know what wet rosin is. This was an extremely sticky substance. So did Diaz come back jacking up the ball? I don't know. We know everybody's capable of, using a little something. So, hey, you got pinched. What are you going to do about it? Right now, the Mets, as far as their lineup goes, continues to look really formidable right now. I told you about 2 weeks ago, about 10 days, 2 weeks ago, that they needed Martinez to lead them. He has done that. He has been terrific so far. You put him right in the middle of the lineup. Lindor has flourished in the leadoff spot. Nimmo's been hitting home runs. I know he's not getting on base as much as you want, but he's been hitting home runs. Lindor has snapped out of it. His batting average is up to 240. His OPS is up to 750. So he's back out of the doldrums. He has responded in the leadoff spot. Martinez has been every bit the consummate hitter. Alonso is not a happy camper, I don't think, right now. But he's still that power threat, and he can break out at any moment. I know you want more out of his season, but he still has 16 home runs. It'll get better for him if he stays here. Vientos has shown you power at third base. Is he going to do it consistently? We'll see. So far, so good. Having Alvarez back is a huge plus for them offensively. The guy is a big-time hitter. For a catcher, he is a big-time hitter. So when you have Martinez, Lindor, Alonso, Alvarez, Nimmo. A guy like Vientos who's showing power. Bader's had a good year at the bottom of the lineup. McNeil's had a lousy year. He can snap out at any second. Right now, both Yankee and Mets second basemen are having rough years. And they're capable of so much more. We know that. But right now, there's some length to the Met lineup, and it's playing well. It's hitting on all cylinders. So this will be interesting. And as you know, as we set the scene for the 2 days at Citi Field, this works. This time, after all these years of Yankee-Mets series, you're going to still see someone say, "Oh, the bloom's off the rose. It doesn't have the same appeal." Nonsense. It fills ballparks. When you show me a game that the Yankees and Mets are playing and you show me a half-empty stadium, I'll tell you it's over. That has never happened. And tomorrow night, if you're in the building, take a look around. And I guarantee you're not going to see any empty seats. And around 15 minutes before the game starts, there's going to be a buzz in the building. And that's what this series provides. That's why it works. And on a year where the Mets, and it's usually the Mets, not the Yankees, we know that, but when the Mets are in the doldrums and they need a boost in attendance and they need to play some big games, this series gives them a big lift. And it will do that again. Fascinating sporting event tonight. Game 7. Stanley Cup Finals. Now, I have watched the entire series. I usually don't, if the Rangers have been beaten and there's no local deal, I usually don't watch much of the Stanley Cup Finals. I have watched every game this year. Why? Because I've been fascinated by Florida. I really like their coach. I like how he acted during the Rangers series. I was impressed by their team and their concepts and the way they went about their business and their consistency in the Rangers series. And they started off the finals the same way. They imposed their will on Edmonton. Game 1, Game 2, Game 3. And Edmonton looked like they just, wasn't going to happen. And then Edmonton flipped the switch. And what has happened is now set up an historic Game 7. It's very rare. We know in basketball it hasn't happened. We know in baseball it's only happened once that a team's come back from 3-0. We know we lived it. It's happened in hockey. It doesn't happen often. A team down 3-0. Now you're in a championship series. A team down 3-0 comes back to tie it at 3. And not only tie it at 3, comes back and dominates the 3 games. They have outscored Florida 18-5 in the last 3 games. As Messier said the other night after the game, Edmonton has overwhelmed Florida with its speed. Overwhelmed them. And, speed, there is no substitute for speed in sports. And speed has been a huge factor in this series. Edmonton could not really get it going in those first 3 games. When they hit the switch with the 8-1 game in Game 4, it turned everything around. Those shorthanded goals. The fact right now. So look at Florida. Florida beat people up with their consistency, with their defense. Their goaltender was playing really well. He was having a special postseason. Their defense was terrific. Their forechecking was immense. There were periods against the Rangers they kept the puck in their end the whole time. Now, Florida can't score on the power play. Can't score. They're lucky if they get out of there without giving up a shorthanded goal to Edmonton in the last couple of games. You almost feel like Edmonton's got a better chance to score than Florida does when they're on the power play. They can't get their forechecking game going. They continue to make bad mistakes, and those turn into great opportunities for this lightning-quick Edmonton team. Now, games 4 and 5, their superstar exploded. But he didn't have a point in Game 6. And I didn't think Florida played that badly in Game 6. 2 empty net goals. I thought Florida looked better in the third period. But the question now, and this is why this is fascinating, and that's why I'm fascinated with the Florida coach. You know, he's got a quick wit. He looks like he's in control. Now he's in his second straight Stanley Cup, finally lost last year. And now he's right there, one game away from a title, but also one game away from an historic collapse. He gave his goalie the day off yesterday. He said the goalie's not to blame for what's happened here and the fact that he's allowed 5 goals a game in the last 3 games. He absolved them of the problems. They have had nobody playing well except Barkov, who has continued to play really well for their team. They have a lot of good players on that team. They have stopped playing their game. They have not been able to impose their will at all on Edmonton. And everyone I talk to, who I talk to about hockey, who know hockey a lot better than I do, have told me they think Edmonton's going to win. And I'm fascinated to see if this coach, who I think is a really good coach, can they, after 3 games like this, is it over? Or has the, you know, it's funny when the Red Sox got through games 4 and 5, which they should never have won. We know how they won Game 4. 9th inning, Yanks have a lead with Mariano on the mound. Series is over. A walk, a stolen base, a little ground ball single up the middle ties the game, and then Ortiz wins it in overtime in the extra innings. The next night they have a 5-3 lead, and the bullpen for the Yankees doesn't do it again. Gordon and then Rivera. They get a bad break on a ball that doesn't stay in the field, and a ground rule double costs them with Clark. They lose the game. When they came back for Game 6, Yankee pitching was in disarray. I really felt in my heart the Yanks were dead. I didn't think they were going to win another game. When I went to the stadium for Game 7 that night after the Bloody Sock game, and I thought Schilling would win Game 6. And then for Game 7, I didn't trust anything the Yankees were putting on the mound. They're down 8-0 after 2 innings. I really felt the Yankees were dead after Game 5. Games 4 and 5, I never thought the Red Sox had a chance. After Game 5, I said, they're going back to Yankee Stadium. I think the Yankees are dead. A lot of people think right now that Florida's dead. That Edmonton has solved them, has completely overrun them, has, dominated them on the power play. They can't do anything on their own power play. They can't get their forechecking game going. Their defense isn't working. They're getting overwhelmed by the Edmonton speed. This is over. That's what I keep hearing. I want to see if Florida, having had 2 days off, yesterday, that since the minute they boarded that plane after Game 6, and I never thought Edmonton would lose Game 6 because it reminded me so much of Rangers and Vancouver. When the Rangers lost Game 5 at home, I remember Dog and I flying back out to Vancouver, and And that scene in Vancouver was overwhelming. I never thought the Rangers had a chance to win Game 6 in Vancouver. And then Game 7 came back, and we know how tight a game it was. Now, we know this is going to be a competitive game. I think more people think Edmonton's going to win than Florida's going to win. As far as the odds go, Edmonton is a slight underdog. Slight. Very slight. It's almost a pick 'em. Can Florida somehow, and I think it has to be early, I think they have to come out and retake command of the series right now. If they let Edmonton play another period, in the first period, if their power play looks like it's looked and Edmonton is, threatening to score every time you turn around, if Edmonton is flying up and down the ice, we've seen that game for 3 straight games. And in that game, Florida hasn't been able to compete. They've been outscored 18-5. So from that standpoint, it seems to me it is incredibly important what happens in the first period of this game tonight. I think Edmonton could come from behind and win. I don't know if Florida could. If Edmonton gets that first goal, I'm not sure Florida is going to be able to recover. I mean, I think they are right now. And I never thought this team, the way it looked in the postseason, the way it looked in the earlier series, and the way it looked against the Rangers, and the way it looked early in the Stanley Cup final, I never thought this Florida team would be overwhelmed this way, taken out of its game as much as it has. Give Edmonton credit for that, with their skating ability, with what they get from their superstar. He is an electrifying skater. The way he handles the puck. Now, he gives the puck up sometimes. I mean, he makes mistakes, but he also makes some incredible plays. Florida clearly has got to regain some kind of momentum on the ice. They have not had any moment of that for 3 games. So this to me is fascinating tonight. You know that since the minute they got on that plane, he has been working on their psyche, their team collective psyche, of getting them to a place where they'll be ready to respond to. Their crowd's going to go crazy. You would expect an early lift from that. But that's only going to last for a couple of minutes. They go silent if if Edmonton's going up and down the ice like they have the last couple of games. That crowd will be quiet very early. Their goalie has been solved. You can't expect him to stand on his head and win this 7th game. That's not going to happen, probably. They have figured him out. So I'm not saying he can't play well, but he's not going to just overwhelm bad play and, stand on his head. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you got a better chance their goalie would do that right now than the Florida goalie would. I talked to some hockey guys the last couple of days, and I was surprised how strong they were that Edmonton was going to win, that this series had been broken. And they might be very right. Once they let loose, once they figured it out, once they got it going their way, they have been like a wave that has just washed over the series. That's why I think it's so important for Florida to come out and show that they can get back to their game. Can they do that after 3 games of being overrun? They don't have any confidence on their power play. He's even made changes on their power play. You almost get the feeling that Edmonton can score every time Florida's on a power play. I mean, clearly, Florida has been stripped of any swagger, any toughness, anything it had. It has been stripped of all that. It needs somebody to lead them right now. I don't know who the vocal leader of that team is. I have no idea. I know who their most consistent player is, but I don't know who their leader is. But this is a game where that kind of leadership is so necessary, where somebody has to get this team back. And this team has to come out, be physical, get back to being who they are, and obviously being able to control the puck in their own end, which they have not been able to do at all in the last couple of games. So to me, this is a fascinating study in the coach and in the team and in team dynamics. I mean, listen, they've been beaten down. Edmonton's going to take the ice tonight, a confident team. There's no question about that. They think they're coming here to finish an historic run. And maybe they are. So, anytime you get a Game 7, it's good. This one is so compelling and such an interesting study on so many levels because their games are so different. And who's going to impose their will have so much to do with this hockey game tonight. So, I'm looking forward to it. I really am. Now, I don't know if you saw what happened at the Travelers yesterday. One of the more bizarre incidents that I can remember in sports. Here you have the best player in the world right now, Scottie Scheffler, with a one-stroke lead. He's got a one-stroke lead on the green at 18, playing one of his very good friends in Kim, who has played very well on this day, who has about a 10-foot putt for birdie. Scheffler has about a 27-foot putt for birdie. And as they're about to decide this thing, all of a sudden you see somebody in the sand trap. You see somebody else rushing the green. You see flares going off, and you're like, what the heck is going on here? Now you realize that demonstrators have somehow gotten loose on the green on 18. You don't know what they are doing there. You don't know what they're carrying. They were carrying flares. We didn't know who they were. What their message was wasn't important. Jim tried to ignore them completely. The cameras did ignore them as much as they possibly could, although they left remnants of the flares all over the green with white stuff all over the green and red all over the green. The golfers are standing there. Now, Scheffler doesn't show a lot of emotion. He's a very spiritual guy, as we know. He likes to keep himself very even-keeled. But this was a chaotic situation. Now, give the police up there an incredible amount of credit. They cleared those guys out and got command back very quickly. They should be commended for what they did. I mean, they did an incredibly good job. They had them swept away and gone very quickly, within moments. Now you're left with all the junk on the green. What are they going to do? Now they have to wait and do that. Plus they had to give Kim a path that was uninterrupted, that wasn't in any way damaged. So they had to move his ball a little bit. Scheffler putting first because he has a 27-footer, leaves it about 6 inches short. taps in for par. Kim, with all this craziness, makes the putt. I mean, dead center. Now we're going to a playoff. We don't even know they're going to play one whole playoff and come down 18 again. They want to do that, but the green's been damaged. Now they have to have the grounds people fix the green. They decide to make a new hole. So think about that. You've played this hole already today. You're going to play it again. Now you're going to play it a different hole on the green. So they let the golfers check it out, where it was located, walk the green. They carted them back to the tee, and they played the extra hole on 18. Everyone at that committee and everyone at that tournament should be very much proud of how they handled that. Yesterday, they handled it very well. Luckily, nobody got hurt. They were protesting some environmental thing about oil. I didn't even pay attention to what they were protesting. Something about oil. And then on it, they played 18. Now on 18, Kim had been great hitting the fairway all week. Took his driver out, drove it. Scheffler hit lesser club. I think it was a 5, but I'm not positive. But it definitely was a lesser club. It wasn't a driver. So he's got 154 to the hole on his second shot. Kim has 111. Scheffler, as he just does better than anybody, his approach shots are just utterly brilliant. Hits another great approach and leaves himself a very makeable putt. Kim's next. He got 111 in. He had a 30-something yard advantage. If you're a pro playing for a tournament win in overtime, you're 111 yards out. You're in the middle of the fairway. You're thinking, I got to put this right on the flag. Instead, he put it in the bunker. He hit a bad second shot. And he left himself was left with a terrible lie in the bunker. Had a bad bunker shot that was going to get away from him. It did get away from him. Now you know the tournament was over. Scotty had 2 putts to win. Knocked it to about 3 inches away and then tapped it in for his victory. Now, I want to commend both players for how they handled everything. They handled everything from a sportsmanship standpoint terrifically. They handled the pressure and all the drama terrifically. So both golfers should be very commended on what they did and how they performed yesterday. Now put Scheffler in some perspective. I understand that all the best golfers aren't together now. The only time Scheffler sees the world's best is at a major. He doesn't play against the guys that obviously would compete with him. Rahm, DeChambeau, Koepka, Dustin Johnson, on and on and on and on, who are in live. It is a factor. There's no question. But what Scheffler is doing is unbelievable. It's Tiger Woods-like. I mean, he became yesterday the first golfer on the PGA Tour to have 6 wins before July. The first golfer since Arnold Palmer in 1962. 6 wins before July. He's had 6 wins in his last 10 tournaments. That is utter domination. He is dominating the PGA on. We have not seen anything like this since Tiger Woods circa 2000. I think the most tournaments Tiger ever won in a single season was 9, I think. I think it was 9, top of my head. I'm pretty sure it was 9. He had other times he won 8, he won 7, he won 8, he won 8 a couple of times, he won 9, I think more than once. He won a lot of tournaments. We know that. He dominated. Jack dominated. Tiger dominated. They faced better groups than Scotty's facing. We know that because of the separation with Liv. But Scheffler has been incredibly dominant. He's now not going to play again to the British Open. And he has just had an insanely good year. I mean, 6 wins in 10 tournaments. 6 wins before July. I mean, guys don't win 6 times on the tour in a year. That doesn't happen. And he's got, a good number of tournaments still to play. And one more major. So, again, the Travelers should be commended, and it's just amazing to see what Scheffler does. Every time you turn a tournament on a Saturday or Sunday, there he is. If he's in the tournament, he's on the leaderboard. The Open was a rarity. He didn't play well any of the 4 days. It was the first time he hadn't had a round under par at a tournament in years. He did not have any. He was 8 over for the tournament, which wasn't bad, but he was 70 or better every day, which he has not done in years. So he just didn't play well at the U.S. Open. But he has completely dominated the sport. And he deserves credit for that. And, hey, people say he's not exciting, he's not this. I think he's not a thrill guy off the course. He's not going to do what Phil Mickelson did at DeChambeau does with the crowd. This is not his way. But when he's playing, I think his game, he attacks the course, he goes after it, and I think he's an exciting player to watch. So Yankees-Mets tomorrow, looking forward to it. Game 7 tonight for a Stanley Cup, looking forward to that. And, I mean, that is going to be so interesting. I would love to, afterwards, whether he wins or loses, know exactly how Florida handled these things from the minute they got on that plane, trying to change things, trying to turn things around and motivate his squad to believe that it can go there and win that Game 7 after the way things have gone the last 3 games. If you like sports, this is what it's about. What it's about is that Game 7 tonight. See you later.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.